Hey guys,
Hey.
How are you doing?
This is the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm your host, Shane Hinton, and with me is Deedee Forward with very bad connection issues.
I have appalling connection. I'm going to apologise to everyone now for my audio. I have just been told by Shane that it's my fault for living in countryside.
That's true. That is also true.
But we do live in Shropshire. A lot of us is in the countryside, so
that is also true. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Today we've got an amazing. I've actually been looking forward to this ever since Al said to us, "Is anybody about to come and do this podcast?" Because I'm busy. I was like, "I'll do it straight away." I put my hand straight up. I was like, "Yep, I've got that. I'm completely down with that." Because we are talking to Smash Life. We've got Andy and Matt Smith here with us today. How are you guys?
Brilliant, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Good. And Matt's just been telling us about his Subway just before we hit record that he's just had. So I'm a little bit jealous.
this
I've got.
This is something I want to ask about your Subway. Yeah, because you've got a tuna Subway. Now, are you the kind of person? Do you go for cucumber or sweet corn, or have you got both on there? What are you, red onions?
I'll be honest with you, this is what I say to the attendant behind the Subway desk. Put everything on it apart from sweet corn and cucumber. So you just guessed the exact two things that I always say, leave it out. Because what they actually do for people listening to this podcast is the cucumber actually moistens the bread too much for me. And I like the bread to be dry. So thank you.
Oh, yes, you do have a point there. Yes.
This is a mad experience.
Welcome to Smash Life's food hour.
Can I just chip in on there and say I'm the one half of Smash Life that got children, so I haven't even had my tea yet. So thanks for rubbing.
I'm with you on that one. I haven't eaten today yet. Yeah.
So for the people who are listening who don't know what Smash Life is, do you want to give us a quick explanation of what you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Smash Life is primarily myself and Matt. We're brothers. Matt's the older brother, so I always love to point out I'm the younger brother. And our journey is growing up in care in Shrewsbury. And we've got a joint 35 years working with children and young people in various settings. And in 2018, I think it was November, we just kind of came to the conclusion that we're ready to form something powerful, something educating, inspiring and engaging for children, for professionals, for adults, and to really take control of our own destiny. And that's what we've done. So Smash Life provides mentoring. So we're advocates for children. We give advice and guidance for children in care and be that role model we needed growing up in care. We do group work, so the typical youth work, really, with children in schools, children in care, children anywhere, really. We provide talks. So today, for instance, we've delivered training for Luton Council for all their staff and professional social workers, frontline staff, reminding them why, and obviously giving good tips around practice and how we felt growing up in care. And we provide consultancy as well, so helping services kind of shape themselves to be that service that inspires young people and the service young people need, not just tick boxes.
And like you just mentioned then that I'm guessing you were both brought up in care, so you're not just people who are passionate about this, you're people who have been there and you see maybe what's missing and how you can put your bit in to improve that. Do you really feel like you've accomplished that, or have you got a long way to go? Because I'm very new to Smash Life. I was reading up on you guys today and you were absolutely fantastic.
I think for me, when you're in the system, in society as we know it, young people are usually in a powerless group in society. And being in the care system away from your family, which is what happened to us at the ages of 4 and 5, respectively, we were placed into the care of the local authority. And what happens then for most young people is the authority, i.e. Shropshire Council, became our corporate parents. So ineffectively, that meant that they were basically our mum and dad, but they were employing people to look after us. And that is where the power dynamic is very great. But what we're trying to see is readdress that so that young people feel they have a voice within the care system. They feel like they can ask for things when they need it, and they feel like they are listened to. Because Andy and I went on to be abused for 8 years between 1990 and 1998, emotionally and physically. And a lot of people afterwards, we only talked about this on social media about 2017, 18. And we're in our late 30s now, and a lot of people were like, well, why didn't you say anything? What was going on? Because we didn't have that voice as a child. And some of the things that professionals were doing at the time, they were just doing a role that they felt they were ticking boxes, as opposed to really capturing our journey, our voices, our feelings about the placement that we were in. So Andy and I are very much centered in a humanistic, child-centered approach in what we're trying to do and advocate for. And we don't care if we offend people at the top with what we think and say, because we believe that the power dynamic needs to change, because the service shouldn't be given downwards to young people. It should be directed upwards, and they should be informing how services are shaped rather than the other way round.
Yeah. I've that's it. And the podcast. No. You know, you're right. I mean, the thing is, when you're in a sort of your archetypal normal,
family,
for normal family, there are other people involved. You know, you have your extended family, you have cousins, grandparents, stuff. All these sort of more people that you can actually turn to when there is a problem. And you could turn around and say, like, you know, this is happening, or don't like this, or, you know, things like that. And there's so many different places you can go with this stuff, and they have the power to enforce that, you know, or at least deal with it, you know. But I can imagine somebody in the care system where, like you said, you've got the entire council kind of thing that's your parents, and you're just getting somebody paid, you know, a wage, I guess, just to come and look after you. Who are you supposed to turn to? Because this
is where it's smashed life, because we've got what happens in our society, and I'm pretty sure everybody agrees, is people only start really taking you seriously if you've got letters after your name, or you know. But for us, we've sort of said, we've got our degrees, we've got the experience now, and it's nice that certain people have decided, well, actually, these lads, they've been around a bit of a while, they're not a flash in the pan, they've gone to university despite their abuse, they've made something of themselves, and it gives us a bit of weight in that field. And it allows us to be the voice for the children alongside them. And also, when we're writing reports and stuff to the professionals, we can actually advocate on their behalf of that, as Andy said, because sometimes young people don't know how to vocalize what they're going through, what their struggles are. And they might need that person to go, all right, tell me how you're feeling. And it may come out in the wrong way in the behaviors that Andy and I see in school. And we'll go into meetings and they'll be like, they've kicked off today. And we're like, okay, but what's going on beyond the school gates? You know, and then it's like you're having to sometimes tell teachers, remind them, one, that they're the adult in the situation, and that two, this young person going and getting 11 GCSEs is probably the last thing on their mind when they've got all this stuff going on at home. So it's reminding teachers as well, and people in education professions, that, you know, people have lives beyond the school gates. And again, your agenda isn't the priority sometimes.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And going back to you saying about how it's a bit more like they're ticking boxes rather than giving the children a voice. I think there's a lot of people now who also work in care, and I think a lot of them feel like they can't speak up on what they feel change that need to happen. I think they are happily going to working alongside you to make sure that those children's voices are heard, because I feel like some carers feel like their jobs will be threatened if they're going to stand up and say what they think is right or wrong, or I'm pretty sure some out there who are in the wrong, but sorry, Andy, were you going to say something?
I get where you're coming from, and we deliver training, and being totally honest, because we're quite visible on our social media platforms, delivering a lot of positivity. We're not there, you know, effing and jeffing and you know, putting contentious stuff. We're there to promote, and we're there to share our vulnerability, and we're there to educate people. Some of the people that are really close to the stuff that's going on, and in our training, we do get messages after saying, from professionals going, if my manager wasn't there, or if this senior leader wasn't there, I would have probably opened up. Do you deliver something independently? Which we do. We do deliver training, but I mean, for us two, you know, we could be classed as rebels, really, because we have worked in local authorities and we haven't been happy with the level of management or the agenda, and that's why we created Smash Life. And it's funny, really, because you constantly feel sometimes that the people at the top, you're trying to impress them, or you need to, and you get to a certain age where you're like, actually, it's not about you. I'm actually more interested if the young person feels that I actually give a crap about their life or care about them, rather than actually, someone at the top actually thinking, yes, let's tick a box. So for us, we advocate people, raising their voice for the child, because remember, we're working with children that their brains aren't developed. They're acting on emotions. They're going in and maybe kicking off at school like we used to, because awful things are happening at home. They've had their mum and dad taken away from them. So they need advocates like us that are going to say, hang on a minute. And so we encourage that, as long as you promote it in a healthy way, as long as you're not aggressive in the way you put things across. Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. We need to get their messages across.
And I think there's 2 points to be said here, right? Just because we're from Shrewsbury doesn't mean there isn't social problems in Shrewsbury. And Andy and I, we grew up in Holscott, and then we were moved to an area in Shrewsbury near Copthorne, Gaines Park, where the abuse took place. And we talk about it in our presentation about perceptions. Oh, you lived in a nice house. It was in a nice area. The people had a good job. You had 2 cars on the drive. You went on holiday every year. That doesn't mean that it was a home full of love. I visited many homes during my career, if you want to put it like that. And some of the best houses and parenting that I've witnessed haven't hardly got anything. They're just there for their children. So we're reminding local authorities and saying messages like this. What would you expect for your own child? Reminding those professionals that your job is someone's life, because for them, it's not just clocking in and clocking out. And it's for our job, I feel, our responsibility to remind them of this fact.
Yeah. It goes back to what Andy was saying about educating people.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Which is really good. Another thing I want to say, where has the name Smash Life come from?
So interesting. And you know what? It winds me up, this name, sometimes, because so for us, we both sat in a room and we were both saying, right, what are we going to be called? What are we going to be called? That's going to be really impactful. And Smash Life is one of them ones where you're like with kids and going, come on, you can smash this. You can do it. Now, we've had emails from professionals calling us smashed lives. I've been into a school and I had a lanyard saying Andy from Splash Life. And I was like, listen, I don't deliver swimming coaching here.
Take your speedos off, Andy.
I have to remind some professionals and say, listen, if you're calling us smashed lives, we're not going into children's lives and smashing them up. We're helping people. It's very much like Smash Life is that positive connotation where it's like, come on, you can get through this. We can smash this together.
I think from a marketing point of view, for young people, I've worked in various projects, and the names you think some people come up with are just so non-inspiring or very corporate entity. And it was something, Andy came up with the name Smash Life, and I came up with the slogan, overcoming life's hurdles together. I don't want young people to feel like I did on my own, without my parents, without any support. I'm in a system that I can't control or have any say over. I want to be that guiding light, the signposter, sometimes the empowerer, someone to say, look, I don't know, and sometimes I won't have all the answers and I can't make things better overnight, but I can direct you in certain ways where you can make better choices for yourself moving forward, so you can have a better life and you can increase your life chances and go on and achieve. Because within our story, it covers the abuse, but it also covers the other side of it. And what we don't teach in our society is about what we learn from failure. Andy and I have failed in so many areas of our life, and we cover this in our presentation, but we've learned from that so much about ourselves and also from those failures. And you take it on and you become what's called, what schools love to hear now, more resilient.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily just people with regards to kids in care and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm literally going through this sort of change right now. My son is he's challenging. Let's just say he's a challenging kid. He's willful and passionate is what I'll say. And my I've got an older daughter and she's brilliant. I have no problems with her whatsoever. But we have to go about things differently. So instead of I've been frustrated. I'm not gonna lie. I've sat there with my head in my hands. And I've been like, oh, this kid, and we've had screaming fits. We've had literally the whole spectrum. But then you sort of sit there and you think, hold on a minute, there's something, the trying to sort of get these two things to combine, the parenting to the kid kind of thing, it's just not compatible. And no matter how much you try and force it together, it's just not going to work. So it's got to come from me because I'm the adult, and I'm the parent. So I've gone to that Solihull approach.
Yeah,
I'm doing that and that kind of stuff, and that's teaching me loads. And just changing your perspective about the way to.
Do you know what, Shane? Do you know what? You've touched on something really good there, and I'm glad you've raised it. I think it's about showing young people, and especially you're their father, that even I'm still learning by doing these courses. I'm doing these courses because I want to improve things at home and I want to be a better parent. I mean, that's fantastic for a young person to see. And how many young people see adults in positions of power or parenting turn around and say, I got it wrong, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And that is a life lesson. If we're expecting young people to apologise for the mistakes that they made, and they do make mistakes, and don't worry, we talk about responsibility to them. But even with parents, I've worked with certain parents in the early help job that I had who were like, well, I'm not doing that. Why should I? I've tried everything. And I'm like, because you're the adult in the situation. And if they don't see that you're willing to bend or move or be malleable, then they're never going to learn anything. And they will copy whatever they see from the adults around them growing up.
Yeah. They're the product of their own upbringing, aren't they? And this is the thing. And I think that's what's missed, especially when you get kids at school. I was a naughty kid at school, and there was reasons behind that. I was pain in the backside. So you ask anybody, but they don't seem to ask why, which is exactly the question that you guys are asking. It's straight away, it's nail on the head. It's just like, why is that happening though?
Right, there was
naughty.
You've just brought up something that Andy will say. Andy, bring up that example recently about that teacher that it really disgusted me, this did. And this is a current example of perceptions about the young lad that you had to remind the teacher.
Yeah, so it's quite funny, this, because the situation's not funny. It's just we keep going back sometimes because we are obviously advocates for the child. So the child might be swearing to us, going, I hate this person, I hate that person in this situation. And what we say is actually we talk to them about how you can maturely put your points across, and we put their points across. I was supporting a child in a secondary school who was just struggling with a teacher. He just said, listen, we're butting heads all the time. He doesn't like me, I don't like him. And sometimes it's like, listen, not everyone's going to like you in life. That is a fact. You can't be everyone's friend. Even though I know a few people that think they're, we're friends of everyone. It's like, it can't do that. As you get older, life is a lot easier. Trust me. And, this lad was saying, every time I walk in, this teacher's saying to me, get out, and all sorts. And so I was like, okay. So obviously I go back and I say to the school, let's have a bit of mediation there. And the school went to the teacher and said, I think we need a bit of mediation because obviously you're the adult, let's repair it. And the teacher goes, well, he's a bit of an idiot though, isn't he? And it's just like, hang on a minute. Let's remind this teacher that this boy has had 19 moves in his life and he's 15. So he's going in, with his barrier up already, reading these signals and probably on his toes, ready to kick off every single session. And it's just about reminding that teacher, listen, you're the adult. Sometimes all it takes is you to go, before he walks in, just kind of intercept him as he walks in and go, hey, good to see you today. And at the end of the session, just go, well done, well done for coming in. All it takes sometimes is that quiet little word. But some teachers really struggle with taking that mask off. I'm the teacher, you're the child mask, and just be human. And, for us, we had to highlight that. We weren't there to shame the teacher by all accounts, because we do understand. I know what I was like in school. I was a pain in the backside. It's hard when you got 30 people. But for us, it's about putting their views forward and just reminding people that, at 15 with 19 moves, just imagine where his mindset's at.
Yeah. And even at obviously my lad's 5, and even at that age, although he might not necessarily be able to make decisions, sort of consciously or like the right decisions and things like that, he still has a brain, and he's still able to make those decisions now because he's so willful. This is what I'm learning, as I sort of go, because he's so willful and so sort of strong-minded and strong-headed. Because he is if he's like, no, this is what I want, and there's no change in his mind at all, just not having it. And it's just kind of working with that and kind of molding that. You can still get them to do what you want them to do, but you have to sort of, it's more like a game of chess, I suppose, rather than like, you know, what do you call it, whack-a-mole? Like, it's not whack-a-mole, it's like a game of chess. and that's how I sort of see it. Is I have to kind of be a bit more tactful about how I sort of go about these things, and I'm learning that, and I'm finding it really bloody hard. I'm finding it really hard because it's completely not like me at all. And I'm learning it as I go. And I get it wrong, and it's just an ongoing thing. I'll probably still be an amateur at it by the time he's 18, But
the hard thing, Shane, is sometimes not beating yourself up about it. And sometimes it's when we speak to foster carers, we're like, listen, you're doing the best you can. And sometimes it's about myself and Matt going in and going, you know what? When we were in care, if we'd have lived with you, we'd have absolutely loved it. And it's about reminding them that this child has been through stuff. Now, I've got two children, an 11-year-old and a 3-year-old, and my 11-year-old needs a lot of positive reinforcement, needs an arm around her a lot. Now, I've got a 3-year-old who's using my face as a trampoline at 5. And she's so strong-minded, and it's about learning to adapt. And myself and Matt, that's what we have to do with every child we support. We both know that, gosh, we've got to have that approach with this child. There's some children that we can say, that is out of order, and it's out of order, and they'll sit up and listen. There's some children that that is going to break them if I have that approach. So you have to kind of maybe reflect a week after. And I think what you're doing there is you're just showing being a great parent and adapting. It takes time. There's no manual for us to follow, is there?
No, they don't come with an instruction manual at all. No, you're right. It's hard, man. It's hard, and not only, people that have people from care, care kids, it's it's even harder in my opinion, because like you haven't got that emotional kind of, certainly from the off anyway, from like the get-go, you haven't got that emotional connection, you haven't got that drive as a parent to do these things. You're there partly because you chose to, obviously there is that side of it as well, but I can imagine that, like, obviously I haven't been brought up in care, so I'm kind of completely guessing a little bit here, but I can imagine that for somebody who has took on care kids, that takes a little bit of a graft, certainly from the off, to a bit of commitment, a bit of sort of sticking power to kind of stick it out and go through those hard times and stuff. Obviously not the bad ones, of course, but the people that are good care foster parents and stuff like that, I've got massive respect for, because that's tough. That's tough.
Well, let me tell you this. The two people that we stayed with for 2.5 years, that was Andy, myself, and my older brother Richard, because we have got an older brother called Richard, and Richard's got learning difficulties. So he was placed after that foster placement we had for 2.5 years in a different part of the country. So to meet his needs, but we were all together during that placement, and those people had 173 young people over the space of 30 years. Now you can think about parenting skills and what they learned. They just became natural at it, great at it, and we were settled and happy there. The people we were placed with to be our forever mum and dad by social services, they couldn't have their own children. They didn't have any experience really of having children, and that was really obviously highlighted when their parenting skills were called into play over those 8 years. They did obviously, I don't know what training they had. I haven't sat down and spoke to them in 22 years, but you could tell straight away they were trying to rule with an iron fist, rather than the negotiation. And I try and say this to foster carers, and as young people get older, it's less about control and it should be more about negotiation and talking, but the people we lived with and suffered the abuse from, it was all the physical aggression, the emotional abuse, and I think they got their parenting model from their parents. So they were just recycling the trauma that probably they went through as children. So, and we see that quite a lot. So we're trying to also break generational cycles of parenting. So you've got all the stuff going on in life, society. At the moment, we can say lockdown and COVID and all the mental health stuff. And then you say social media, but then you've also got, parents having children that might not have resolved trauma themselves. So Andy went on a course when he was in his 20s. Do you want to tell him about the safeguarding course, Andy, and the message that made you sit up?
Yeah, so this is once again, you have some courses delivered which is very professional, and this is why I love with we call it CPD, continual professional development. I love watching podcasts. I love watching people show their vulnerability. I learn a lot from lived experience. So I was on I think it was child protection training, and I think I was 24. And this lady leading it just said, statistics show if you've been abused, you're going to go on to abuse yourself. And it was very matter of fact like that. So I sat in this training. I'd never really disclosed my abuse then. I felt powerless, but I felt very angry. But then I had this little kind of voice inside me going, will I hit my kids? Am I going to abuse my own kids? That planted that seed of doubt. And, I knew deep down, because I couldn't wait to be a dad. I knew from a very young age I was going to be a dad. I was 26 when I was a dad. And I knew that I would never, ever abuse my own children. But it just made me angry reflecting back, thinking you have to be so careful about the language that you use in training. Anyone could be sat in there and it could be a trigger for them. So we just have to be so mindful.
And also it's not, for me, when I heard that, it was that judgment based on what, if anything, what my upbringing and has taught Andy and I is to have more empathy for our fellow human beings, because you realise how you don't want to be treated as a child or as any human being. And you think, God, I don't want to put anybody else through this. Do you know what I mean? So that was every child that I work with. It's funny how we've both gone into professions that want to help children, because we know what it feels like to be lonely, to be oppressed as a child, to be hit, to be thrown around, to, all that stuff that we went through. So I think it is very much about sticking up for the small guy, or girl, and saying, no, I don't care what the head teacher says, we're here on their behalf and we're going to stand in their corner, and all right, we'll tell them off if they need to be told off, and we'll have a little bit of a word. But, we want to give that power back to some of the most powerless people in our society.
What you've just said is 100% spot on. When I was at college, I had a friend, she was going through a terrible, terrible, tough time, but she kept on smiling all the way through. And she had some horrible people in her life. And I remember the day she turned around to me and said she's grateful and thankful for those horrible people that she has in her life, because she now knows what kind of person she doesn't want to be and how she's going to grow up and never be like them. And she's thankful that she met them.
So I don't know if you guys, in our presentation, I use a slide, and Andy won't mind me saying, I can't use the images of the people that abused us. I can't say their name because defamation of character, and we haven't never done that. We never will. It's not about them. It's about the messages that came from our story. But I use the guy from The Simpsons, the head teacher that they sometimes rope in when the teacher in The Simpsons, the pathetic teacher, the head teacher, the guy that's like, why you little? Because that's what he was like. He was very aggressive. And the lady was, she reminded me when I saw the film Matilda of Mrs. Trunchbull. And that's what, honestly, like people laugh, but I'm like, no, this is the representation that I can give to these people to explain to young people and adults what it felt like living there.
Wow.
Right, I'm going to mention the elephant in the room right now. This is terrible situation we're in, our lovely pandemic we're all enjoying so much. How has Smash Life had to adapt? How's it working at the moment? Because obviously children in care, people working in care, you don't get furloughed. There's no days off. So how have you adapted? What are you doing that's changing?
So, great question. And, and this is what separates the great services from the services that are just putting pictures out there and, pretending to do stuff. And I'm going to say that because it's honest. It's honest. And the people that close their doors when actually they're needed, because it does happen. We had a very quick conversation. We're only a year in at this time. And it was I think it was a Monday night, we'd heard about lockdown. People didn't really know if it was that serious. And then we start to think, gosh, it is, schools are closing, social services are contacting us. And And we just had a very quick conversation. We said, what would we have needed? We need to keep going here. Yeah, we were worried financially. What happened to Smash Life? Are we going to still have a wage? Yeah, that played a factor. But we said, right, we're going to find a way. So we had to learn about Zoom, Skype, Teams. We've got a big Instagram presence. So a lot of young people follow us. So we did a lot of mentoring via Instagram video calls. We had a lot of children that were messaging us at night after 5 p.m. when some people's phones are off at 5 p.m. Ours aren't. We're still there. We came together as a team and said, right, what else do you think we need? And we created our Instagram lives every Thursday night and had a load of inspiring guests that come from loads of different backgrounds. And we're still doing that now. We just had a very quick conversation and said, right, we can't sit still in this situation.
But we also continued the mentoring. So the mentoring just went onto a virtual platform via Skype. So you can imagine when you've got an hour's appointment, maybe with a young person who's 8 years of age, you can imagine some of the comedy routines that we were seeing. But we continued the virtual mentoring. When lockdowns were lifted, we obviously put in a COVID-19 risk assessment, and we were able to continue supporting some of the most vulnerable and valued young people in Shropshire and beyond. So that was lovely for us, really. And it was great. And do you know what? Those young people got me through this lockdown as well, because it gave me a purpose. I wasn't sitting on my backside watching Netflix. I did that in the evenings, but, I was literally supporting young people, and it raised my spirits because their resilience and their humour and their innocence, they don't read the news. They're not interested in what's been going on in Parliament or the wider conspiracy theories. They were just like, hey, whatever, So I think for me, it's been great, and we have been rewarded for doing that. We got an award this year for Unsung Hero by Telford and Wrekin Council for supporting young people throughout the lockdown. And so we say this to young people: hard work beats talent.
Yeah.
Hi guys, by the way, thanks for letting me join in on that. I was just dealing with something else, that's why I couldn't be a part of this, but I have been listening backstage while you guys have been talking. Can I just say, you guys are doing phenomenal work. I am so proud to have you guys so local to us and doing the work that you do. After finding out about you, I was my mind was just blown. I work in support as well, work with young people, and the conversations you were just having about making sure people feel individual and not like a number, and making sure that they have the life that everyone deserves. All that kind of things you were just talking about is exactly my my drive in life. That people aren't a cog in the machine. I just want to congratulate you guys on the work you're doing, and thank you on behalf of everybody on the county. Yeah,
thank you. That's really nice.
Second,
really nice. And you know what? We've got a team now. We're recruiting more staff, but we have got a mentor called Richard Shaw, who's been instrumental in the last year supporting young people as well. And he's on our Instagram Live. So the team is growing. But what we've decided, Andy and I, is rather than go, right, we've got 20 mentors, let's do this, is we are going to be selective about who we take on, because it's not about quantity, it's about the quality of staff that you have. Are they young person centred? Can they use their own initiative when chucked into the deep end? Because sometimes you have to think on your feet, and there isn't a manual. Some days I'm working with young people and I think, flipping out, but because I then draw on that experience that I've got, and we do different things. We don't just turn up, and some schools have said this: can you just go and see that young person in that horrible, smelly little room we've got at the end of the corridor? And I'm thinking, no, let's go out, let's have a kickabout, let's break the ice, let's get them relaxed. Then they're going to start opening up. Not, right, let me sit above you like I'm a clinical physician. Right, my name's Matt Smith, I'm a doctor in psychology, and I need you to tell me all about your life and what the problem is. But this is it. We need to move from a more medical model, I think, to more of a relaxed kind of therapeutic model.
Yeah, I think that's across the board as well. I think that's also with regards to even down to education. I think the standardized testing and putting people in boxes and doing, putting people in boxes in an education sense isn't viable anymore, because people have an innovative.
Do you know what, Shane?
Lost it.
Every time you speak, it prompts me to go off on a different wave. I'm going to tell you guys something. So all throughout my secondary school, when this abuse took place, I grew up in the 90s, right? So Oasis were massive. And I remember, Alex, I did see you at Andy O'Brien's gig last year, so hi.
Oh.
And I was sitting at the table in front of you. So it was a great night. And it was just before the lockdown. And our band was going to do, I think, the next Friday or something. So we were gutted. But anyway, all throughout school, music, I wasn't really... at home, it was my escape. I loved it. I was listening to tapes. Do you remember tapes? That's how old I am. I had my CD player. I was listening to Graham Torrington on Beacon FM, Late Night Love. I was that young person doing that. But my music teacher just didn't pick up on it. I got chucked out of learning the violin when I was about 7, 8 at primary school because I didn't want to sing Bar Bar Black Sheep in front of my friends. So Andy and I got hurled out like the Liam and Noel Gallagher wannabes that we wanted to be. And when I was 16, I left school, right? I couldn't play the guitar. And I watched a DVD called There and Then by Oasis. And it's where they played at Manchester City Stadium. And I was so inspired. And I picked up that guitar. And I say to young people, if there's a will, there's a way. I didn't have any money. No one gave me £1,000 to go out and buy an amp and a guitar. I had to then, get those lessons, learn off friends. And since then, I've been playing music for 16 years, since 2006. As a live performer, I've played in Dubai. I've played all over the UK. I've played with Tim Vine and Scott Mills. So I say to young people, it sounds cheesy, but you can do anything that you put your mind to. And no dream is too small. You just need to visualize it. And if you want to be a rock star, if you want to be a rapper, put the effort in. Because if you start it now, you're going to make it look easy when you're in your 20s and your 30s.
Mm.
And I've got to ask a question about creativity and sort of how you write and how you make music. When you're from a background you guys are, but you're also moving in the direction you guys are also moving in, can it affect the creativity when it comes to writing music? Because when it comes to music, sometimes it's good to show that anger and the passion and the desire to sort of change things or talk about the past. Are you conscious about that? Is it something that you just want to stay away from, or do you feel like
No, I mean, I've got 2 separate musical projects. So my first one that I gig with for weddings, corporate stuff, is Sonic Boom. So that's the band that's around Shropshire, West Midlands. That's up and running. That takes care of itself. On the other hand, I go out under an artist name called Sonnet Smith. I write my own songs based on my experiences. So if you go to our Facebook page, Smash Life Facebook page, at the top of that page, Andy and I recorded a video of a song that I wrote last year called Where We Running To? And it literally is about our journey. So it's about 4 minutes long and you can listen to it. It's an acoustic ballad. I thought make it, a bit the heartstrings pull on it. But I've just written a punk song called Kickback. And that is about, and we're going to release it with a video. And these are all to inspire young people. And this one's about basically people will abuse you in life, whether you're bullied at school, whether you're put down by in a relationship, whether it be your foster carers, whatever. But it's making sure that abuse doesn't rule the rest of your life and that you don't go round. I've wanted to go round to their house many a time when I've had a few drinks and Bruce Lee them in the face. And I'm sure my brother would be right behind me. But I knew that if I did that, they would win because I would be locked up. They would be able to turn around to everybody and go, see, I told you he was a little hooligan. And I didn't want that. I thought, no. So we say to young people, get your own back in a better way. Make yourself better, not bitter.
Nice.
You're full of these little sayings, aren't you, mate?
I know, I love it. Last night I was watching little Buddha quotes on YouTube, and I think it really feeds the soul if you have a lot of these things, because sometimes with all the negativity in the press and stuff, it's nice to balance it out with some wise words, and a lot of these Buddhist sayings and stuff are really food for thought,
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I love them. I absolutely love them. I love a good metaphor as well. I love a good metaphor. I think they're brilliant.
Did you want to say anything, Andy? Sorry, I keep feeling like I'm talking.
This is what it's like being all the time. My face is like this all the time. What I wanted to say, guys, was when we talk about education and things like that, the way it affects me education-wise was people try and put you in a box of education, your English, your algebra, but I can't remember ever walking into a shop to buy a Mars bar using Pythagoras theory to get that.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because when I left university, I didn't have any advice and guidance around money, around overdrafts, around credit cards, loads of stuff from my social worker. And because myself and Matt presented as okay, even though we had all this trauma inside of us, we were kind of like loose cannons, really. And even though we were doing okay academically, and I left university £15,000 in debt, credit card debt. And I live with a fantastic foster carers post-16, Mandy and Tim Malloy. Mandy's the CEO of YMCA. She's amazing. And I remember taking their car and just by the theatre in Shrewsbury, there's a ramp, and I was just going to drive in. And I think that was 2006 or 7, because all the trauma kind of hit it. It just hit me. And I was going out, accelerating that trauma, drinking 3 times a week, because that's what everyone else did, wasn't it? And, it really annoys me, because I think why, even like in primary school, there's not stuff really around well-being, around kind of friendships, around bullying. We have people that are wheeled in to do talks, but why not proper subjects around this, and around overdrafts, around independent living, all these things that are going to help us as we progress, because we were effectively on our own at 16, independent, and we didn't have any of them skills.
Yeah, you're right. I was exactly the same when I left school. I got myself into debt. Still carrying it now because I'm still trying to sort it out. It's one of them. And yeah, you're right. There was absolutely nothing. You're 16, you're out on your ear, and that's it. You're expected to survive as an adult,
They should at least teach kids how to pay bills, and keep your head above water. They do cooking at
but
school.
More importantly, what to do when it goes wrong. I think that's more important. It's not necessarily how to start doing it. It's what to do when it goes wrong. What to do when you get in those debt and you get into that overdraft. How do you get out of it? How do you get out of overdrafts? You ask any 16, 17-year-old, they'll just look at you with a blank face. Going, I have no idea. What's an overdraft?
You know what I find a lot, especially with people that will say, can you come and work with this young person? They're kicking off in school. They're being the class clown, because I was the class clown at school. I was the Jim Carrey, sort of trying to make the girls laugh, like, how you doing? And then I was the Liam Gallagher as well, of like, you're looking at me, mate. Mad for it. But underneath, it was just a massive mask, because I was wetting the bed up until I was 14 because of the abuse that was going on at home, and I tell people now that are in my form, and they're just like, what? This was all going on at home? I thought you were absolutely fine, because I just learned how to mask it all. And when we talk about young people, it's just about Andy and I and Rich and whoever works for us reinstalling that purpose, getting them to find a deep purpose within them so that they know why they're at school. Okay, I might not enjoy every subject, but I know in a year's time I'm going to go to college and I need 3 GCSEs to get in there. So I always say to them, no one's going to remember you in 10, 15 years' time, because they're going to be so concerned with their own lives. It's just about find your own purpose. Do whatever turns you on. If you want to go to college and you want to do music, or you want to do a creative subject, do it. You don't have to do what everybody else does. You're not a sheep, you're a lion, and you can be your own lion. And I think it's just about having those nice, simple messages and reminding them that they are unique and an individual, and they can go on and achieve. Because for some of them, they've never had an adult in their life, an adult specifically, put their arm around them and go, I believe in you.
And that's what it takes sometimes, isn't it?
They should also teach good music as well in schools, because I remember we were excited because we had Jarrett Reddick on one of our shows, right? And I told one of the kids that I work with, we've got Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup coming on our show, and they were like, who? And I was like, who? Like, it's just crazy. Like, it was definitely should have a School of Rock sort of presence in school. Like, these are the bands you should be listening to.
But you know what, Alex? That's a really good point. What you're talking about there is making the curriculum relevant. So if we're using music as a tool to educate, yes, go back, learn about Beethoven, Mozart, the fundamentals of music, but then let's have a conversation about the Beatles. Let's listen. Let's talk about Stormzy. Let's look at where that all originated. Let's try and that will engage some of the most hard to reach young people in your school. And I work with some lads and they're 14, 15 and they're going through puberty. So you can imagine their voices are dropping. They're sounding like Charlotte Church 1 minute and the next minute Barry White, but I think it's like, for me, it's It's just about making, what is it that will get that young person's attention? And with one of the schools that I go in, because Andy and I have a contract with Priory School in Shrewsbury, which is a great school. Yeah. So I go in there every Thursday, and I try and be a bit of a light for those young people who might be going through a bit of difficulty, either at school or at home. And it's the school we, funnily enough, went to when we were growing up. So it's really nice that we're able to give something back. And it's just great that, you know, trying to get those young people inspired. And some of them are now taking singing lessons. They're doing, you know, it's just sometimes reminding them that, you know, all right, you might be too cool for school, but why don't you just try it for yourself and step out your comfort zone?
But just to jump in, you know, as a society, we look at role models and heroes and people that we really push to the top and go, yeah, they're really inspiring. So it's genuinely footballers and, you know, celebrities. There's a few people that we grew up with from Shrewsbury that one of them is going to be ambassador for us, Niall McCann, who basically does stuff with David Attenborough. He's like Shrewsbury's version of Steve Irwin. And he grew up on the same estate. Honestly, he's got his own program called Biggest and Baddest with Niall McCann. He's got a PhD, lectures, a real role model from Shrewsbury. His brother, Rory McCann, murals, and you know, he's had his own hurdles in life. And forever, we're trying to fit people in boxes and going, you need to aspire to them. Yeah, as ambassadors, we have got a footballer who's my brother-in-law, Billy Jones, who grew up in Shrewsbury. He's an absolute legend. And we've also made the decision this week to have 2 children in care as ambassadors, just to show the world that you don't need to be a certain age or certain status to be an ambassador. So these 2 young people are going to come on board and be role models and ambassadors and carry our messages. And it's just, once again, just kicking back and saying, actually, we're rewriting the way it should be, society.
Mm.
And sometimes when you want change in life, it does ostracize you. People say, whoa, but sometimes it's a good thing. Not everybody will agree with you. And sometimes you have to stand alone. And, you know, I said to Andy, you know, he was frustrated at the beginning of the journey, like, why don't these people support us and this people? And I said, they will. Sometimes it takes time. You know, it's like being in a band. And I've learned that. I was in quite a successful cover band around Shrewsbury, and we did really well. And we had a great name locally and everybody loved us. And I started a new band and nobody liked us because it takes time. It takes time for people to fall in love with you, as Ian Brown once famously said. It really does. And, you know, but then these messages, it's just all about watching it. And it's been nice to see professionals evolve and social work and youth work. And Andy and I have been really keen to say, I think people should have been clapping for social workers as well during this time, because they've kept certain families together. Yeah. Yes, nurses are fantastic, but look at the people that are doing that work behind the scenes that we don't hear about.
Do you know what really shocked me, actually? My brother-in-law is just trained to be a counsellor. And what blew my mind, and I didn't even know this until he shared a poll on Facebook, was that counsellors weren't essential for lockdown. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like that blew my mind. I was like, this is mental. This is actually mental. I got McDonald's open down the road, but counsellors aren't allowed to work. Crazy.
I totally agree. And when we talk about mental health, and if you talk about holistic mental health, counselling, exercise, which is something Andy turned to, obviously through his trauma, he was doing a lot of football, a lot of running, still does now, because it maintains a good mental health. And we've seen gyms close down. And then you've got Burger King, Subway, McDonald's, you know, it's all open. You know, is it really serving the interests of public health? You know, I don't think it is. And that's, I think, been one of the main frustrations for a lot of people. It's having that exercise, and it's something we promote with young people as well. Use those mediums that you can do. Get that energy out, football, rugby, whatever it is.
It's going to do one of 2 things. It's either going to teach people how to be independently stronger, or it's going to cause a lot of people to sweep it under the rug. This, because you know, people they were taking a step back from mental health before lockdown. Regardless, they were reducing funding everywhere, through schools, for the NHS, everything. Yeah, and then lockdown happens, people can't get to their counsellors, so they're either going to find these holistic ways of dealing with these things, which is great, brilliant, or it's going to create chaos. You know, when the world opens again, you got all these people that are so used to being in their own space and being by themselves, have been told to go to work now, go to college, go to school. It's going to be really hard, really hard.
And in our Instagram lives and things like that, we have had mental health specialists on, you know, just giving advice to children and foster carers. You know, things such as, if you're going back to school, don't just dump them at the school gates after, you know, 3 months. Walk up to school, you know, during the holidays, have a discussion. How does it feel to be back here? You know, ask them questions. What's it going to be like in a class full of other children? Get them to, you know, feel what it's going to be like. And they're the little bits that we can do ourselves, you know, to help each other. And I suppose that's what we're trying to do with Smash Life, just trying to prepare children and be real and honest with them. But I totally agree with you, Alex. I think it's worrying times, really worrying times ahead. It is. And I think that the support that you guys are giving and others that are, you know, sort of in your field is really important. I mean, I was just double checking myself on the name because I couldn't quite remember it. But when I was going through my counselling and stuff, one of the things which, in fact, it's my sister that sent it to me, was Rock Thomas. It was a video from Rock Thomas. I don't know if you've ever come across any of his sort of stuff, but he said the words that follow "I am" follow you, and that really rung true to me, and that's something that really sort of hit home. And it was like, you know, how do you describe yourself to yourself? You know, and it's just like, what are you? You know, and he's drilling this out, saying like, if you start thinking to yourself, I am the greatest, you know, employee in my company, and or whatever it is, and just keep saying it to yourself, keep saying it, and you become driven, and that you start driving towards that thing. Because the thing is that you know, your brain is like software, and you know, and this is what he was saying, is that your brain's like software, and you can reprogram it. Just that most people, especially people that have been abused, people that have been through that kind of life, they just don't know it, or they haven't been given the tools to know how to do it. But you can. You just gotta, like you said, it's where there's will, there's a way, and you know, you just gotta keep hammering on that, you know, and it's a grind.
I think as we get older as adults, it is harder. They do say it is harder to learn new things. And if your brain stops developing, and you'll learn this in the Solihull thing, at 26, it actually stops growing, I think it was one of the things. You know, it is going to be a lot harder to put new information and internalize new self-development messages inside. And I think Alex touched on it. The last year has been very good for people to stop and reflect on how they are, where they see themselves, and where they're going in their life, and what's important. You know, it's made me stop, because I was gigging 2-3 times a weekend, flat out with Smash Life. I was burnt out. Yeah. So it's made me think, and now I'm missing gigging. I'm like, I need to get back out there, because, you know, that's another part of my life which I get a cathartic release. So we absolutely love what we do, and we hope the passion shines through when we speak to you guys about it. And we're really excited about the future. Really am.
Awesome.
So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, if anyone listening to this?
So we've got a website, www.smashlifeuk.com. We're present on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We've got an email address, info@smashlifeuk.com. And you know, we're on top of everything. So anyone can DM us. They can message us through our website or through various social media platforms. And we love hearing from people. Normally it's professionals saying, "Can you work with this child? Can you?" And you know, it's just reminding people sometimes that, you know, we can't be there for everyone, but we do try to host our own stuff as well, which will inspire young people, such as Eventbrite, things that we've got coming up, our Instagram lives. And we try and put a lot of positive content out there. We do our Smash Life stories as well, which are on our Instagram, talking about how we felt in certain situations, which means what we're doing is showing our vulnerability, because we can't work with everyone, but we can inspire from afar.
How often do you do your Instagram lives?
So we've just done 3 weeks worth. We've got to get 2 PE teachers on next week. So Andy will be leading that with them, and they're giving like some tips and hints about, and that's between 7 and 8 p.m. on our Instagram at Smash Live UK. And literally it's Instagram Live. It's free. So you just literally tune in and it's listening in and contributing to a conversation a little bit like this one. So we're going to try and keep doing it as long as the lockdowns are in place. Obviously, when they're lifted, the audience and the reach sometimes goes down. But for us, it's been another positive focus as opposed to doing nothing during this time. So
I'm assuming then you guys could also cater for a domestic kind of setting as well. So like maybe just a couple of parents are struggling with their kid, somebody like me in my situation, for example, and they're struggling with their kid and they're running out of options. Is that something you guys could help with? Can they contact you?
So we do a lot of foster care training as well. So what we've done that up and down the country. So whatever agency the foster carers were with or on, because there's a lot out there, private and public owned ones. The first protocol would be like, so what training does your organisation that you're with have, and support do they offer you? And if that's then, well, yeah, actually they do. It might be, liaising with that company, or maybe approaching that company and saying, hi, we've had a message from somebody that works under you and they feel there's a gap in this learning need here. Would you like us to come in and do a piece of work with you and your staff? Because for us, it's just that continual learning and maybe just also a bit of motivation, because workers suffer from compassion fatigue. They suffer from burnout. Parents do as well. And sometimes, just like Andy said, just reminding people that you are doing all right. What levels are we all judging ourselves against, and reminding people that actually it is difficult at the moment and we're all human. Like next week, I'm looking forward to, we've got one on Eventbrite, and we had a school today buy 14 tickets, and we were like, yes, because we want people to be engaged, and we're writing it at the moment. And it's just saying what's helped for us personally and making it interactive so people can feel like they've got something and can take something away with it. Go on, Andy, sorry.
Yeah, I think what you were saying, Shane, about, you kind of classes, let's say your normal parents, I couldn't think of the word, your natural parents that might be struggling. Yeah, so we, as a service, I would say we've given a lot of sessions away for free in helping parents that have come to us really struggling. And it has torn on the heartstrings, and we said, right, we'll come out and we'll give 10 sessions and we'll help. And we've done a lot of that. Obviously, it's not massively sustainable in the long run as much as we'd love to do it. So we have to advise sometimes and say, right, we could probably allocate X amount of year, but please go to your school lead, go to your pastoral lead and ask them, because they're the guys that might have something called pupil premium, and they can recognise services that you can use. But it's about you as a parent going in and advocating, saying, I really am needing help and support. And then it might go to the team that Matt used to work for, the early help team, Matt.
Yeah. So I was based, before I started this role, I was with Shropshire Council for 12 years. So I trained to be a youth worker. I worked in Leicester for a bit with some really, some young people who had a lot of issues in the YMCA, who were living independently. And I was doing what's called an E2E programme, entry to employment. And then I came to Shropshire Council, and then all the youth service cuts happened. And I was put in the early help team. So basically trying to stop families breaking down so young people wouldn't go into the social care system. So you can imagine some of the families that I was going in and trying to support. And sometimes it worked and it was great. And sometimes it didn't, because you're sometimes going in far too late when these young people are 15, 16, 17, and parents are really struggling. And we're always promoting the proactive early intervention. You've got to get in there early. We've got to work with these young people and families when they're at an earlier age, because if we set the good habits with parents and young people, they stand more of a chance when they hit those teenage years.
I'd love to. I'm going to speak to you after this, because I feel like maybe we could put something together. With where I work, if you've done stuff at the YMCA, you definitely fit in where I work. But I'll write to you after this.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'd love to work with you.
Thank you. So did you guys have any more questions? Because Deedee, are you still awake? Are you there? I can't see you.
No, I'm still here. I just realised
She's in the bath, isn't she? She's like this.
Yeah, I know. That's why I got my camera off. You can't see it. Actually, I've got a glass of champagne on the go. No, I'm joking. Just because I'm so self-conscious about my audio, because I'm having to use my iPhone, because I've got a very vintage laptop that doesn't like to do anything or cooperate with me. So I'm so worried that my audio is going to mess something up. I'm going to get a horrible text off Al saying that, Dee, you need to sort out your audio. So no, I don't want to go and ruin that too much. But I have just noticed we have been going for just over an hour now. Shane, do you want to add anything else?
No. I love what you do. I love what you do, and genuinely, I'd love to work with you in the future as well. So whatever the Biscuit can do as a podcast, if you got anything coming up and you want to push it, you want to promote it, then please give us a shout, and we'll do whatever we can to help. Because I think what you're doing is amazing, and you're changing people's lives, literally. And probably to not just change it, you're probably saving lives, if we're brutally honest. But guys, we are running out of time. And Al's been sending me messages going like, dude, I've got to edit all this.
See, the thing is, I usually do all this and I'm like, 40 minutes, start rounding it up. This is kind of like, I'm doing it every week. I've got another show after this. But I wanted to let Shane do his thing. Like, do your thing, Shane. I'm not doing anything. It's your
yeah. Whatever.
And you've done a brilliant job, Shane.
Oh, thank you very much. I love what you guys do, definitely. But I have to do some shout outs now, which I always get wrong. So I wanted some help, Al.
I'll do this bit. Yeah,
yeah, you do.
Okay, quickly before we get out of here. Thank you guys for being patient. I would like you guys to check out our website, which is www.theshrewsburybiscuitpodcast.co.uk, and that's made for us by our friends at Web Orchard. If you need a website, make sure you go and check them out. Pete's amazing. He's coming on my USUC show on at the weekend. You should definitely listen to that. We also have something coming up on the 20th of February. We're going to be running every 2 weeks from that date. It's called the Shrewsbury Biscuits Virtual Market Showcase. We're going to get 2 traders in that are local to speak to 2 Biscuiteers about what they do, show us what they do, and we're going to try and help independent businesses survive this difficult time. So you make sure you join us for that. It will be live on our Facebook. If you want to get involved, please get in touch. But yeah, Shane, you've done an amazing job. Well done. Matt, Andy, it was amazing listening to you. Even before I came in, I was listening to you guys, and you've got an amazing story. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Deedee. Go home.
Anytime, it's absolutely our pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Right.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Take care.